John, before you go, I just want you to reiterate about what we were talking about, the water regeneration for power. Michael, explain it. Why it's hard to work? The drilling down.
Oh,
You mean the geothermal or?
I'll try to find that
Yes,
that
but-
article. It was one of the Club of Rome people had posted it, that, you know, it went on. I just thought it was a neat idea, but they had a technology for getting past the temperature problem.
Well, okay, fine. It was 40 years ago. I was in the drilling.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
45 years ago, I was in the drilling business, but I
Okay.
know it's a special trick. But yeah, we might all go tap into the core of the earth. My ground source heat pumps system on my house
Essentially,
here,
yeah.
effectively doing that, and it doesn't go deep. It just goes 3 feet down.
Yeah, no, and the heat pump thing is taking off like crazy. Like, it seems to be one of the more appropriate ways of catching energy.
Well, and we don't have to do it with ground source any longer. We can do it air source.
Just air
Yeah,
source.
I want to hear your opinions and what's your suggestions and recommendations, how you really feel about energy saving, energy consumption, some of the latest technology that you are seeing developing.
Well, I'm not practicing in the field any longer, but having known, having been in the field until 5 years ago, but on the large building and industry energy field, energy conservation field. But I look at my own house, and I have 2 houses, a cottage and a house, and insulate the hell out of them, change the windows, tighten it up, and reduce, in other words, to reduce the load, the heating and even cooling load if you want, and then put in an efficient source that's clean, heat pumps. In Ontario, we've got a reasonably clean grid. I happen to be buying bullfrog power myself, just to further force the grid to be a little greener than it otherwise would be, as my commitment. But our grid in Ontario is not too bad, except that Doug Ford's trying to increase the amount of natural gas used on the grid. But the basics of insulating and weatherizing, call it, of a house to get its energy use down to minimal. That's not complicated, but it's architecturally difficult. You got to make sure that you don't end up with condensation in the wrong place and rotting out your structure. With all the bricks falling off, because now the bricks are cold because you've insulated on the inside. It's better to insulate on the outside if it's a solid brick house. So the technical issues aren't complicated, but they're not the stuff of the average homeowner. Even me, as an engineer who, before I got into running businesses in this area, I know that you need somebody specialized. And we don't have an army of technically knowledgeable tradespeople who understand how to do this stuff yet.
And that's what we need to train them, because I think the whole mandatory building regulations has to change completely and utterly to make safe houses.
Known a couple people doing courses in wind and solar and installation and all of that stuff, you know, different courses, one in the Maritimes, one locally. So they're happening, but I agree. We need an army full. We don't need a few dozen.
For healthy
homes. I asked the heating contractor who services my gas boiler in my house. I have radiators for heating my house. I asked him about, well, can I, will these, now that I've improved the windows, I've put in triple glazed windows, can I get away with a heat pump systems feeding my radiators? Well, heat pumps put out lower temperature water than boilers do. But now that I've put in better windows, maybe I can get away with it. Although putting on the insulation on the, anyway, talk to my heating contractor about it, and he said, I don't know, that's beyond me. I don't know any of that technology. It's water-based heat pumps from heating from the drawing air from the outside and not from ground source. It was kind of new technology.
Yep.
The average contractor isn't up for it, and let alone figuring out how to properly insulate. And when I was in the industry, one of the things I actually got some government funding to help me try to promote heating and air conditioning contractors, to get them to become pick up the little bit of extra expertise they need in order to say, well, okay, we know the guy who understands how to put insulation on your house, and the guy who knows how to maybe fix your hot water heating or hot water tank, your tap water tank. And we know the government grants that are available to do all these things, and we can put it together for you because we already have a relationship of trust with you, the customer, because we've dealt with you for 20 years and you trust us. And we trust these people back here who understand how to insulate and do the other things that you might need. And we'll put it together for you. I had a government grant to help me raise the awareness of the heating and air conditioning contractors associations, several of them around Ontario. And they sort of accepted the idea, and then the government grant dried up and I didn't have any support to keep promoting the idea, and the contractors took the idea and said, oh, well, we didn't really want to do that. Not going to do that. Too complicated. We just want to sell furnaces and service and stuff like that. So
yeah,
somebody's got to create the demand. If consumers were all of a sudden told that, hey, your carbon budget is so much per year.
Oh yeah.
Not necessarily as a ration, maybe just tell people their budget, and then if that doesn't start to impact things, then make it a ration, and then people can decide whether they're going to spend their ration on a trip to Mexico, or driving to Niagara Falls, or taking the bus and insulating the hell out of their house so that they can fly to England, or whatever. But let each person decide how they're going to spend their carbon budget. I think that's what we've got to have the government telling us.
Yeah,
I think that's very necessary. What
we are allowed to use or should be using. And I've recently just fired off a letter to my MP and the Minister of the Environment and the Ministry of Natural Resources about your recent energy reduction plan is full of big words and money flowing all over the place. I don't understand it. Tell me, MP, your house is kind of like mine. I know where you live. It's sort of like mine. What are you doing to your house in order to meet this plan? If you can show me what you're doing to your house, then that would be instructional for me and lots of other people. So that's what we need to know. What should we be doing to our place? And I told him, don't give me a fob off standard boilerplate answer that you're looking into it. No, aren't we great? Don't respond until you've got the real answer. And I haven't got an answer yet. So maybe he's thinking about it.
They're so busy. They get so many emails, and I wonder how many, of our efforts. It's like spam mail, right?
Well, I may be regarded as spam because you must have about 20 letters from me.
Well, that's and they count them, and at least that gives them some sense of where the interests lie.
Yes.
Even if they can't put some intelligence into it, let alone fix up their house.
Right.
The problem politically, of course, is that the corporate world is much richer than most national governments, and we got to start composting corporations, right? Everything in nature grows. That's the model. But everything also dies and returns the biomass for other things to grow from. But in the economy, there's entities that never die, but they continue to collect the biomass of the economy, and we're outdone. I think we need to compost corporations.
Well, we need to budget them. They need a carbon budget, just like each of us need it. But if we start living to a carbon budget, which may be zero soon, then there won't be many suppliers needing supply stuff, will there?
Yeah, no, I think we can count on there being a well, the disruptions are starting to happen on a, you know, for natural and political reasons. And, you know, would have thought, you know, a lot of people would have thought that what happened in BC last year with floods and fires and all of that would be, oh, you know, and, you know, the people in that vicinity much more so. But, you know, every year there's more of this stuff. So we keep waiting for that breakthrough. How much do we have to be broken for people to get it?
I'm actually hopeful, I'm not sure if it's realistic, but hopeful that the Ukraine crisis will wake the world up to the fact that its global governance system isn't working right. It needs to be rejigged. There are a whole bunch of ideas out there about how to rejig it, many different offerings. And if we get it rejigged quickly, then we can maybe start to bring down from global type of thinking down to the national and local level and corporate and individual levels, the kind of standards that the world needs. But with the world unable to enforce its own standards or even its Paris agreements, I don't have a whole lot of hope.
Yeah, I sometimes, when, you know, if you look at all of the negative vectors, it's not very hopeful, but what I figure is, at least if we can get the vision of what's possible widespread, then there will be humans here and there. And if that's part of their mythical foundation, they'll do a better job of it next time around.
And maybe there'll just be a few of us humans, of those humans left.
Yeah, I've got one article on, you know, the near-term extinction is not going to happen. Like, we can live in the desert, we can live in the Arctic. We are incredibly versatile, right? We can eat almost anything. So, you know, there'll be humans about. You know, not anything just like 8 billion, but you know, it's a good basic structure. And if we could just get our mythologies right, and there'll certainly be a lot of reasons to avoid some of the mistakes we've made, but we need to spin the vision of a world system that can work, or a local systems that can work. I've got I'll get your email when you send out those things. There's a whole story that I give about how, you know, basically our physical substance is stuff that mostly cycles through the air at no expense. And what doesn't cycle through the air can be cycled through local soils, enough to give us life, healthy life, right? And then you build the buildings, you insulate them, you catch the sun, you catch the shade when you need cool, those various things we can do to have comfortable shelter. Minimum need for any sort of energy source outside of what we can provide in a local basis, right? And that's the essential nature of being human. And if we can look from that perspective and say, well, what can we do with the little bit of flexibility we've got? That's the vision that we're trying to communicate.
Well, it's a big step, but anyway, my email is on the email I sent out about announcing this event. It's info@wfmctoronto.org.
Excellent.
So that comes to me.
Okay. Well, thank you for setting this up. It's been most stimulating.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
And you have one more minute. How do you feel about SMNRs? Because honestly, they're promoting them. Oh God, I am, because Canada, that's going to be their new export business if Seamus Regan gets his way. And Doug Ford is supporting him too.
Well, you know, before I got into the oil industry in 1972, I was considering applying to get into Ontario Hydro because I thought this nuclear power was the way of the future, until I started studying it a bit more and realized that, oh, I shouldn't apply for a job at Ontario Hydro because they haven't figured out how to deal with their nuclear waste.
No, exactly.
And they're still promoting it.
And
furthermore, it's not the cheapest source of power any longer because they can't manage the budget to build these, to rebuild, let alone these SMRs.
Yeah, no, it's a good way to invest money if you can get away with it, but it's devilish in terms of the repercussions globally or locally even.
But it's being promoted as clean, safe energy in your backyard. Honest to God, because if everybody gets on electric cars, what's going to happen? Energy is going to rise and we're not going to have enough. And they're going to say, oh, it's okay. then they're going to jump. In so, you know, the way they did the vaccine, I worry that they're going to do a nuclear thing like that.
Yeah, agree.
You know, because we think it's not possible. We thought that, you know, but
Sorry, we have to refine our communications networks.
it's very, do you know Gordon Edwards?
No.
Canadian Coalition for Nuclear Responsibility.
Okay, all right.
He's been on that file since the 70s.
Yes,
and,
he's
you
the
know,
most knowledgeable
yeah,
person on this.
CCNR, they've got, you know, there's the refutation, you know, you mentioned several of the key points right there when it was first brought up, and the information's out there, and I don't see this resurgence happening, but like Claire says, the capacity of the media to make people think what they wanted to think is
How clean it is.
scary.
Well, this is what
Brilliant people think he
Seth
is.
Klein pointed out, the need for a strong media or journalists who dig in and get the truth, and leaders who tell the truth, not the story that they want to put out so that they can get reelected next time around.
That is the problem with politics.
Yes.
Anyway, well, yeah, so my pet peeve is people shouldn't be allowed a second term. Anyway, let's move on. We can talk all night.
But,
Okay,
yeah, but
well,
we'll send you
good.
Gordon Edwards' contact
Okay, all right.
so, info.
Good enough. Thank you very much.
Thank
yeah,
you,
we'll be
thank
in
you so
touch.
much. Thank you.
Yeah, good night. Thank you.